In the pocket number 2, rhythm is everywhere, literally everywhere, and I've been painfully aware of this in a good way since I was very, very young. Thanks for tuning in to the In the Pocket Radio Podcast. I'm Frank Sardella, and I'm your humble host. Get ready for another episode where we get to the bottom of the groove with interviews, exercises, and advice to put you, the drummer, right where you belong. So join me now, right here, in the pocket. Yeah, that's right. You're right back here in the pocket with me, Frank Sardella. I'm your host, and I am so happy to be back for episode 2. This has been a labor of love for me, and it's been a long time coming. I can't even say it was a dream of mine because podcasting didn't exist when I was younger. There was not even an iPod to exist. So even the word pod in the electronic world didn't exist, literally. So, I mean, even thinking about something like YouTube and being able to have a channel where you could broadcast constantly 24 hours a day, upload videos and things like that also wasn't even a dream at that point. None of us even knew to think in those parameters or terms. Most of us thought, getting any kind of notoriety would be on stage in front of an audience, playing with a big name, the whole thing. So I am actually overjoyed to be back here with you. What do I want to talk about today? Well, I want to talk about something that I didn't get to touch on in my bio. No, we're not going to have a guest today, but I have a really great guest for you coming up in the next episode. Somebody I actually, quote, accidentally bumped into on the subway, started a conversation with, and I'm so happy that I did. I'll be giving him a shout out later in the episode. And definitely, I'm lining him up to be my first guest here on the show. I think you're really going to enjoy him. He's got a lot of really great content. But the point is that I was looking back to the bio episode, and my style is to, when I start something like a podcast, I always think that episode 1 is very crucial. And one of the things that I realized is I sort of left something out of my biography that's very part and parcel to my methods, my system, and my way of defining the pocket and actually teaching the pocket to others. And that is that rhythm is everywhere. And it's literally everywhere, and I've been painfully aware of this in a good way since I was very, very young. I was always aware of rhythm. I was always aware that rhythm existed, and I could always feel it to my very core. And I'm not just talking about in music. I told you, as part of my background, I do have a lot more background than what I talked to you about in that particular episode. I realized there was a lot more to my musical background. After you listen back, you go, wow, I kind of left that out. But one of the key things is that it wasn't just the music. It wasn't just the pop music that I heard, or the rock music, or the progressive rock music that I got into, or even the electronic music, sequencers and drum machines and things like that, perfect meter that really led to this. What led into the whole interest in it, and what started it, without which none of it would have happened, was the fact that rhythm is everywhere in life. And I actually didn't realize that I was just absorbed in the rhythm of life prior to my interest in music. For an example, I can remember, being a little kid and, hanging out in the playroom, which was adjacent to the laundry room, and hearing the washing machine go around or the dryer go around. And at a repeating cycle, certain sounds would happen and they would make a rhythm, because what is rhythm but a set pattern that happens over identical set intervals of time? And I was always aware of time, and I was always aware of repeated patterns through time. And that's really the awareness that you need, and one of the most basic ingredients to playing in the pocket, or being in the pocket, or even knowing what the pocket is, or playing with any sense of groove or rhythm. And this is senior to anything you're going to learn. It's senior to your chops. It's senior to rudiments. It's senior to just making basic sounds on the drums, or on any instrument, really, if you think about it. So, I would get these rhythmic patterns sort of like I could say in my head, but they weren't even in my head. I was hearing them in the environment, and I was feeling them. And I would repeat them. I would duplicate them with sounds that I could, kind of like when you're air drumming and you go, like just those sounds that you're making actually have some rhyme and reason to them. And they lead into what my program is all about. Now, my Beat Smarts program is based on accent and syncopation. And when we get into that later on in the show, in later episodes, and I'm going to be bringing this point up with my guests because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's aware of it. We've all become aware of it in our own way. And through different channels, media, the whole thing. But getting back to these rhythmic things, I would hear like the washing machine, or I would hear the way the car was idling. Pistons hammer at a set interval of time. Timing is everything. Sometimes when I would walk, to this day when I'm walking, I feel some kind of rhythm or maybe get some kind of song in my head that goes along with the rhythm of my walking. You put a baseball card in your spokes of your bike, and as that wheel goes around at a constant speed, it's going to make a pop at set intervals. There are so many different things. My favorite TV show when I was a little kid was called SWAT. I think they recently made a remake of it. And SWAT, it was like even when you heard them firing machine guns, a machine gun has set intervals on how it fires, how it hammers. So there are so many various things, a jackhammer in the street. I would just hear rhythm everywhere and it would completely consume me. And so much so that it was like almost a longing that I had to find it. And that's why music became so interesting to me. It's, finding that rhythmic groove. And I told you that my older sister had listened to a lot of different pop music, but, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, actually was in her collection and somebody that she listened to and was a fan of for a while. And it was fortunate for me because I was not only hearing him on the radio, but I'd hear him at home when she'd play her records. And I would be absorbing, the beat behind that. I can remember, if you can just think of something simple like the song Billie Jean, and you sort of take for granted the simplicity of that song, right? When you just hear that, the kick and the snare come in and then the bass part come in. And there's just a magic to that brings everything together. And that's what you have to start out by doing. You really have to feel it. Now, it always reminds me of the movie Footloose, the original movie Footloose back in the 80s when Ren McCormick was trying to teach his friend rhythm. And the guy had like zero rhythm and he wouldn't like snap and, on the right beat and whatever. In fact, he didn't get the concept of the beat, which to this day to me is just a gone concept on me. I can't even imagine somebody not being able to feel that. It's kind of like how those of us in rhythm hate 1 and 3 clappers. And if you're a 1 and 3 clapper, I apologize to you, for giving you a little crap here. 1 and 3 clappers versus 2 and 4 clappers, clapping on beats 2 and 4. I always think of that movie and Ren McCormick trying to teach his friend rhythm because it implies that it's something that you have to be able to naturally feel, which I don't believe in. I believe that you can learn it. Just like, in the movie, he was theoretically teaching this guy about rhythm. And the guy eventually got it, right? Because he could dance at the end. But the point is that you can feel rhythm after a while if you just immerse yourself in it and you understand the mechanics of it. And the mechanics are just repeated interval patterns over time. And if you can get that concept, even the ticking of the clock, if you just listen to the second hand of the clock in a quiet room, you can start to get that repeated interval and you can start to feel it. And I think one of the best things for you to do is absorb as much as you can of great examples of good groove and in the pocket. Now, I had mentioned a couple of groups that I find epitomize that, and I can't emphasize it enough. As a matter of fact, I need to go out and see Los Lonely Boys. I love that band because they are the essence. They are the epitome of the pocket. And I think I mentioned Maroon 5 as well. There's a song called Heaven. That was the song I couldn't get in my head by Los Lonely Boys. That to me would be, if I had to pick one song and tell somebody, if you want to learn what in the pocket means, listen to that song, go out and get a copy of that song and listen to Heaven and listen to the groove. And actually don't just listen to it, but feel it flow through you. Feel that thump of that rhythm. Feel that interval. Feel those syncopated accents. Feel all of it, and you will totally understand it. It's all around you. And again, I keep going back to this washing machine and this dryer when I was young, because it would and you would hear it, and I would actually play counter rhythms off it and whatever. Rhythm is everywhere. Go outside and listen around you, and you will hear rhythm. Even if you just sit on a park bench and you hear a woman with these clackers, as they call them, the women with the high heels on, the clack on the pavement or on the concrete floor, and you just hear clop, 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 clop go by. There's a rhythm to it. There's a groove to it. And if you really just open yourself up to that, you'll be able to really experience what In the Pocket is. Now, the program that I've delineated, it's a very simple program. It's only 10 lessons long in my book, Beat Smarts. And that basically takes accents and syncopates them. So it has you accent, right? So in other words, an accent is where you're stressing something above and beyond the other things. So when you tap, if you're going to go tap, 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 but you go tap, 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 that's an accent. But the way I just expressed it to you is the way you would expect, something that would normally be a strong accent, tap, 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 like right there on that first one. But if I were to displace it into a place that would normally be felt weak, tap, 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 that would be syncopation. So just in its simplicity. So accent and syncopation are very much going to be what we're going to get into on this show, because this is like the core of my belief, not only belief system, but my knowledge base on this, of how to achieve playing in the pocket, being in the pocket, creating a groove there, and being able to have that perfect meter, but at the same time have people really feel it. That's what the essence of In the Pocket really means. So my encouragement is to absorb all the rhythm that you can around you out there in the environment and out there in your music, and start listening to music with a different ear, but start feeling the music flow through you. I really like to feel the music. I'm not telling you to go and blow your eardrums out or get ear problems. But what I'm telling you is you do have to find a way to just feel it. And if it means playing music, if it means playing syncopated things, then, so be it. And I do have some exercises that I will share with you that you can do that can help you experience that. But I wanted to give you that little bit of background in this short episode today, that rhythm is everywhere, and that you can find the pocket right outside your own front door without ever having to turn on a piece of electronic equipment or listen to a single song. Rhythm is everywhere, and you can find it. So I'm looking forward to bringing our next episode. The person I want to give a shout out to is Swiss Chris. I met him on the subway. I happened to go to an appointment that was at a different office than I thought it was going to be. So when I showed up at the one office and the office was closed and I called the client, I found out that it was going to be way downtown, and now I was going to have to take a different subway line at an arbitrary time. It was a subway I wasn't meant to be on. It was a time of day that I wasn't meant to be on that train, but meant to be is a funny thing, because it sure seems like I was meant to be on that train at that specific time, because I met this great, awesome dude, Swiss Chris. I got to give you a shout out here on In the Pocket, and I'm looking forward to interviewing you. That's right, I called you out officially, so you now have to come on the show. Swiss and I are going to get together and go over our books and stuff like that. He's got a great book on sticking. I've seen some of his videos online. If you want to follow him, check him out on Instagram at SwissChris777, SwissChris777, and you can check him out. But be sure to tune back in to In the Pocket, because I guarantee you I'm going to have Swiss Chris on the show. Swiss, that's it. You've been called out, so you got to be here. I want to talk to you. I want you here in the pocket with us to share your insight as well. And folks, thanks very much for listening to me today. I'm looking very forward to bringing you back here. And I hope you'll be right here waiting with me in the pocket. Be good. The In the Pocket Radio Podcast is a broadcast wellness production powered by Beat Smarts. Executive producer, Frank Sardella. Copyright 2017, all rights reserved. For more information, visit inthepocketpodcast.com.